guys, Aaron with the Primitive Republic podcast, powered by Wrangled Media, sponsored by 6am Outdoors, Invader Concepts, and the Big Game Academy. I have a very special guest, Rose Moore from season 8 of Alone. I absolutely love that show, mainly because it just really resonates with me. I love the outdoors. I love survival. I love just sustainability and all that kind of stuff. And I know a lot of you guys as listeners do too. So we're going to talk about trapping, which she is a phenomenal trapper. We're going to talk about trapping. We're going to talk about her experience on Alone. There's going to be some wild stories, believe me, in this episode. And we're going to talk about her nonprofit, and I don't want to give it away, but phenomenal organization. So stay tuned and just be sure to listen to this thing to the end, because it is an entire hour plus. It's going to be an entire hour plus of just outstanding conversation. This episode of the Primitive Republic podcast is brought to you by 6am Outdoors. Ultralight gear built to go the distance. Whether you're chasing bugles in the backcountry or grinding out miles on a solo trek, 6am keeps your pack light and your mind focused. And with a lifetime guarantee, you're not just saving weight, you're saving money. Rugged, reliable, and ready, gear up at 6amoutdoors.com. That's www.viamoutdoors.com. Remember, adventure begins at 6am. All right, Rose, thank you for coming on. We had a little bit of technical difficulty before, but I think we got it sorted out. You moved to a different location. So for people who aren't familiar with who you are, if you could go ahead and give a little bit of background on yourself, what you do, what you're passionate about, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and sorry about that. That is Pennsylvania. It's like that everywhere here, really, I think, until you get to the cities. But my name is Rose Moore, and I am from Pennsylvania. I was born and raised here. I am the founder and director of a nonprofit known as This Is My Quest. I teach conservation education, land management. I do some wildlife management consulting. I am, I think, most passionate. I'm passionate about so many things. So I'm going to keep it to most passionate about making sure that people understand that the outdoors is free. I think we see it from such a superficial level with social media. I try to just remind everybody that, it started free, it's still free, and I help them get out there. So that's basically who I am and what I do now.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and start from the beginning. So how did you get involved in the outdoors? I mean, most of us that are really passionate about being in the outdoors now started out really young, with kind of a life in the outdoors, maybe a parent, grandparent, stuff like that. So how did you start in the outdoors?
So my story is really big. So I always try to summarize it. Everyone always asks me if it was a parent that got me involved in the outdoors, and it was not for me. My parents were the reason that I was in the outdoors, but not the influence. I grew up in a very troubled home, a very difficult home. So my story gets really big when you go into detail about the safety aspect. Safety was in the outdoors for me. So I went to the woods for a safe place to just be all day, to play and, exist, because it was safer there for me than it was at home. So just was, my comfort zone was there from the time that I was very little. And I grew up with a bunch of kids that, neighborhood kids. When I say neighborhood, very, very small, just a few of us. We lived in the mountains. Do you know who George Washington Sears is? He's known as Nesmik. He's a famous bushcrafter from the late 1800s. Okay.
Yeah.
So I grew up at the base of Nesmik Mountain. So ironically,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So ironically, I ran around the same woods that he ran around, which is very cool little fact because at that time I had no idea who he was. So now learning, that I'm older and everything here in my town, we have Nesmic Lake, we have a statue in town, like we have a Nesmic sporting goods store. We do have a lot of history here about him, but at that time I had no idea who he was just because I was disconnected from most of the outside world. So that
Yeah.
that's that's my background.
So did you kind of follow in his footsteps with the trapping and all that kind of stuff then?
I did. I mean, I do trap, which is actually how I ended up on the History Channels alone because I'm a trapper. Like I said, I didn't know who he was or what any of his background was, or that I was even practicing what was known as bushcraft. It was just stuff that I did. So for me, finding out later that there was value in what I knew, because I always joke and I say the funny thing is it was all of that stuff that I did was what made me a little bit different as a child. And, not having a lot of girlfriends that did the same things that I did. So I just simplify it and I say what made me a weird kid made me popular as an adult. So,
Yeah, just kind of go out and make a fort, and
yeah.
that was kind of that's kind of reminiscent of my childhood and stuff too. Like we would go out and we'd play all the time. We'd make bow and arrows, uh, just all kinds of you try and shoot gophers and just all kinds of stuff like that, And yeah, so I really, I have an affinity for that kind of thing. Like I really appreciate that when other people have that sort of upbringing, even if you kind of brought it on yourself. So
Yeah.
that's really cool. So you said you do some like wildlife management consulting. What does that entail?
Um, there there was, I think, with the last generation, a big disconnect, especially for the trapping side of things. I always am careful about talking about trapping because it's not a sport that I think everyone loves or understands, but it's a necessary means of managing numbers. So for me, that's something that is an issue that I do like to address. I just am careful about how I do it because people feel so passionately and it's so misunderstood the technique of it and the impact on the wildlife. Um, I always have to take a really gentle approach when I'm talking to people about it, but it is something that I feel strongly is a necessity and is a great tool that most states use. Not all states use it, but most states use to control wildlife. So I do a lot of consulting for farms that are having a problem with coyotes. Um, so basically I teach a lot of people how to trap. So I have a lady and her daughter right now. They moved here from more of a city. They didn't really have a country background, so now they have a farm. They have animals. They have a predator population that's way too high, and I'm teaching her and her daughter how to manage those populations. So when I first came in and started helping them, it was more just like, what could we do? So that's what I do is I go to people's properties and I just say, it looks like your populations of this may be a little higher than you want. Let's try to manage whatever population it may be. And sometimes that's just deer. Our deer populations are out of control right now. We just have so many. If people are trying to grow trees and they can't because they have too many deer, they're eating all of those. So I do all kinds of wildlife management consulting, but primarily I would say trapping.
That's awesome. So I just came back. Have you heard of Coyote Days?
I don't think so, no.
Wildlife, I guess you would call it wildlife management consultants or depredation consultants, stuff like that. Go to this, and they all kind of put their heads together and they show each other maybe the newer techniques or management practices. They talk about fur. That I mean, it's a very intensive couple days, where there's like demonstrations every hour on the hour. I mean, it's just it's amazing. But anyway, I just got back from that, and I mean, some of these guys, the amount of things that I don't know was astounding. Like, I I thought I had a decent idea, and then I'm, standing outside with these guys, and I'm like, I know nothing. Like, these guys were
Yeah.
just unbelievable. So I would love to
Mhm.
talk to you about some of that stuff, like offline. I don't want to talk about it on here,
Yeah,
um, but anyway, yeah, that's amazing. That's really cool. And I do think that trapping is really misunderstood, and it
it
gets
is.
a really bad rap. Um, and probably because of some, nefarious characters and stuff like that, maybe doing things incorrectly, or you know, also there's some organizations that will fake issues. Like I just talked about it, I think, on my last podcast. There was a guy that was actually indicted because he was an affiliate with one of the wildlife anti-trapping organizations, and he he went to the Humane Society, got a dog, strangled the dog, and then put it in a foothold.
Oh dear.
And yeah, and then recorded it like it was, you know, the trap that killed this dog. And so, I mean, there's nefarious characters on both sides, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
um, trapping really, really does get a bad rap, and it's a great way to manage wildlife populations.
It really is. And I have seen a lot of that. I saw one, I think most recently, it was a bobcat that a lady had let out of somebody's trap. And then it said that the bobcat was so grateful she brought her babies back to let the woman see her babies. And it was like this big, like emotional, like nobody's trapping during that period of time where they have any young around, So everything about the video was just so fabricated and just, obviously made to tug at people's heartstrings. And, trapping is not for everyone. I think, just takes a certain kind of person that is able to do that. Because we are able to be selective, we do walk up to that animal and we get to make the choice. Is this an animal we should harvest? Is this an animal we should let go? Is this the animal I was targeting? Am I not going to do anything with this animal? Then I let it go. So it's a great way for us to be selective about those population numbers that we're trying to control. If it's not, for me, I mean, I'm not a trapper that is taking in a large number of hides. And there are a lot of those trappers, and they're necessary also. I'm usually there to manage a population of something. So for me, I'm able to be very selective in doing that. Um, some people want possums. So possums get me almost kicked off TikTok every year. So
Really?
possums,
Why?
possums are funny because I think people see them so much on social media. They think they're just like fluffy and, kind of a cute, ugly, sweet little thing. And then I take a possum out of a trap that I'm going to let go because the landowner doesn't specifically want me to remove them, or they will want me to remove them. But the ones that they don't, because they do carry something in their urine that if a horse eats that out of the pasture, that it could be picked up by the horse and it could kill the horse. So some people just don't want them. And when you get too many of anything, it's a problem. But some of them I just let go. But when I get them, Pennsylvania trapping season is wet and muddy and nasty. These little guys look terrible when I take them out, and they do play dead. So when I pick them up, they look dead. And I even said several times last year in my video, this possum is not dead. I'm just letting him go. And every time they said one more time last year, and I was going to be banned from TikTok. It's just the funniest thing that it's a possum that almost gets me taken off TikTok every time. But yeah, so they always just look so rough, being in Pennsylvania. But trapping is pretty great in that way that we get to go up. We get to visibly see an animal that is not harmed, and then we decide, do we need to harvest that animal or not. So, and those
Right.
animals do need to be harvested for so many reasons, whether it's a fox or a raccoon, controlling rabies, controlling populations, all very, very important.
Yeah. Well, apparently they've never heard the saying playing possum.
Yeah.
Um,
You just can't talk to them either. They just don't want to know.
no, no, you really can't. And TikTok drives me crazy because I get censored on TikTok so much.
Do you? Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know why, because most of my clips are probably these podcasts and stuff, where, it'll be a clip of just talking about something, and, it'll show something like alcohol and drug use. And I'm like, what the heck? We didn't mention anything about that. Or animal abuse. Like I did a video, literally all I showed was a tent and elk. That was it.
Mm,
There wasn't even a person in the video.
yeah.
And they said it was animal abuse. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, it just drives me nuts.
Yeah. I got promoting violence against animals for teaching kids to shoot archery at a black bear target.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
100% believe it. There was just a thing that came out. Are you familiar with any of the anti organizations?
I don't keep up with them. I try to just stay as far away from that as I can. So yeah.
Well, so Good Wolf is one of those organizations. And
Okay.
so I try and follow them pretty closely because I want to see what sort of BS that they're spreading. And so they posted a picture of these two guys at an archery shoot. And I mean, one of the guys was a sponsored archer. He's wearing, looks like a NASCAR driver,
Yeah.
and their the target was a tortoise, right? And I mean, you could see all the holes and stuff like that in the foam. And so they said these two were shooting an endangered tortoise and they're happy about it and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, it's obviously a target. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, but
so
they get people on their side by doing that. It is crazy.
yeah. Well, and so that kind of goes back to the misconception around trapping,
Mhm.
like yeah, we drive down, like I can drive up 90. I'm here in Montana. I can drive up 90 and I think there's like three or so giant billboards that have like a wolf in a trap and it just looks so pathetic and it's like, "Oh, you're murdering me" or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But there's this misconception that these animals are hurt for the rest of their life because they're in this trap, and that's just not the case. Like
Yeah.
these traps, you can literally put your hand in these traps and it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
It just holds you. This episode is also brought to you by Invader Concepts, the Montana made holster company that don't mess around. Built by hand, battle tested, and backed by a no BS lifetime guarantee. These rigs are purpose built for backcountry hunters and everyday carriers alike. I trust their Recon chest rig on every wilderness trip, and their Outlaw and standard in the waist belt and out of the waist belt holsters keep me locked and loaded day to day. Quiet Ride Tech means all day comfort, no clatter. These are the last holsters that you will ever need to buy. Head over to Invader Concepts and use promo code TPR to knock 10% off of your order.
Yeah.
So,
I did it last year, actually, on the same day that someone told me on social media. They posted a little comment. I hope you get your hand in a trap. And I had ironically just done that morning with a coyote trap. I just was, dusting it off, didn't have my little brush with me, dusting it off, and it went off and smacked my hand. And I was thinking, yeah, well, that happens. It doesn't hurt. It's okay. But I just don't say anything when they say stuff because usually they're just looking for a soapbox. And sometimes though, sometimes it does get to the point where you just hear so many comments and you get so much backlash that you respond and then later wish you hadn't. But, because I
yeah,
think that without being able to have like an educated conversation with that individual, like the social media aspect just disconnects everybody from each other. So they can say mean things and they can, it's not going to bother them. They're not there to listen to reason.
Yeah, well, there's that whole saying, they don't have to worry about getting punched in the mouth. you know,
Yeah.
Not that I'm advocating for violence, but
Right.
that
Right. No,
used to
I
be a
get it.
real thing when I was growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's situational awareness. Like, what are your dangers? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
so you when you went on alone, um, can you talk a little bit about that? Because
Yeah.
you went in an area that's like very reminiscent of where I live. I deal
Oh,
with
okay.
grizzlies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Granted, your area was a lot more wet than mine.
Yeah. So, Alone is a fun story. Um, because I had no idea what it was. When I say that I don't watch TV, I just never had time. I was traveling around the world with my bow, um, hunting large game, chasing a North American Super Slam, and I was doing that because I wanted to showcase the importance. Because I traveled all over and worked with so many families, and it being a generational thing and part of their culture, I wanted to show how hunting is important to every culture all around the world. It doesn't matter what that culture is. It doesn't have to just be the Inuits. It doesn't just have to be, a family in New Mexico. It's important to every family all around the world. So that's what I was doing, and doing a lot of trapping. So just a lot of conservation education on social media. I was posting a lot about what my mission was, just to kind of show everybody, while I was also doing a bit of it at home. So in posting all of that stuff on Instagram, and it was COVID had just hit. So I was doing a little bit more of posting and doing challenges for kids all over the place. I would say, here are 5 tracks. I want you to go find them in the wild. And if you can find every one, then I will send you this turkey package. And it would be like a turkey call, turkey decoy, whatever. So that was really fun because so many little kids were like setting up like little traps, like they would put flour on the porch to get a squirrel track. And so they were really going out of their way. It was really fun. So, anyways, I was doing that, talking a lot about wildlife conservation, and a producer happened to find me and reached out to me. So I had no idea what that show was. I don't even know that I owned a TV at the time. So when she reached out to me, it was more so because I'm a trapper, which I didn't know at the time. I just thought, she had seen what I was doing. So when I applied for the show and I did all of the casting videos, and they cast me to the History Channel, they used my title was the Trap Queen. So over 20,000 people apply for that show each year. So to make the top 10 and actually go was just not something I ever thought would happen. So I wouldn't say fluent in grizzly bear. I have just been in areas where they are because I've hunted, not hunted, I've helped apprentice guide bighorn sheep hunts in Alberta, and we had one, try to come into the kitchen tents. I had one on the shelf below me. I've hunted Idaho, Montana, all over the place. So I've been where they are and had them in the vicinity. Um, I had, I guess I didn't really, I don't think too in depth about what the dangers of something might be. I just deal with the situation as it comes. And then after the fact, I go, oh, wow.
I
Probably
probably shouldn't have done that.
really should have done that a little bit harder. But I mean, I did, in that I practiced mindset training. So some of my background is in the law enforcement area. That's actually what I went to school for. So mindset training is just something that has always been, there in my thoughts. I practiced mindset training, how I would deal with a dangerous situation, and I prepared for it. I just am not really afraid of those things ahead of time. So
Yeah.
when I
So
went,
for people that don't know, not to cut you off, but
no, you're fine.
so can you explain mindset training a little bit?
So just preparing your mind to deal with the situation and not So for me, like with a grizzly bear, what am I going to do when faced with a grizzly bear? For maybe an Olympic basketball player, or athlete, that would be, what am I going to do if I'm faced with this shot? What am I going to do if a baseball player? What am I going to do if I'm faced with this? So it's just envisioning that over and over and over, how you're going to deal with that, really thinking in detail about preparing for that situation. So just setting your mind to calmly deal with a scenario.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
I did a lot of that, and I think it definitely was helpful. Um, I did panic when I saw my first grizzly bear running at me, because actually there were three. It was her and two cubs, and she was running straight at me down the beach, and I had no shelter. Not that a shelter matters to a grizzly bear, you know? And they do climb trees and they do swim, and they go everywhere that I could go. So I remember I just wanted to I wanted to get some footage of her. So I was trying to like tap on my little camera to get past the trees and to zoom in on her running straight at me as I stepped back in the woods. And then she was just closing that gap so quickly. I saw her nose come up in the air, like she smelled me. And I thought, okay, that's it, enough. And then I went back up and like got up on a hill, because I thought if I can get up high and I can hear where she's coming from, then maybe maneuver from there. But I couldn't hear her because my heart was pounding so hard in my ears. I was like, oh, this is panic. I need to calm down or I'm going to die. So that was the only time that I really panicked, with the exception of towards the end when the grizzly bear, he was stalking me. And so I didn't really panic. I did get very upset, though. I did get very emotional because there's a second when I realized that it's not my choice whether I live or die, that it's the bear's choice, and that nobody is coming to help me. I can scream my head off. Nobody's coming. You are on your own. So I wouldn't say I ever panicked again, but there was that moment of realization that this is absolute danger. So I think that the mindset training really did help me through. I had 8 grizzly bear encounters. So, and some of the encounters weren't like face-to-face encounters. It was like me in my shelter with a bear behind me. I think my shelter at the time was just a tarp over my A-frame that I had built. And there was a bear. I'm just sitting on a log in my shelter, and there's a bear like right behind me shaking off from the lake. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what is this bear going to do? Not what am I going to do? Because I'm not going to do anything. What is this bear going to do? So just waiting them out. So like some of those encounters were, I'm there. They know I'm there. They just maybe didn't have an interest. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things though, like you get in situations like that. Actually, one of my pinned videos is a grizzly that's right outside of my shelter at night.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there huffing and chuffing and, chomping his teeth. And that is one of those oh shit moments that you're like, okay, what do I do? And I'm sitting there, I'm holding a pistol, and I'm like, I'm ready to use it. And then it actually ended up sticking its nose up underneath it was a floorless shelter that I had. And it ends up sticking its nose up underneath the floorless shelter. And I was like, oh, it's almost on. Like I was like, so part of me was like scared to pull the trigger. And
Yeah.
then part of me was like, I don't know if I actually want to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And then like so many things were going through my head at the same time. It was like, okay, so if I pull the trigger, am I going to get investigated like, like I just committed mass murder or something like that? Or, because obviously they're considered an endangered species, right? And then the other side of me was like, well, I don't know if I could get a good hit on this thing anyway, because I can't really see him. All I see is the nose. And, I've read a lot about like the old mountain men and westward explorers and stuff like that. And, in situations where like in the Lewis and Clark situations where they've literally talked about shooting these bears and then they close the gap at like 100 yards to get somebody. And I'm like, I'm 3 feet away.
Yeah.
Like he can reach me. So
Yeah.
if I don't get a good shot on this thing, thankfully, obviously it ended up working out, but I never did pull the trigger on the bear, but I was like, oh my God, that is one of those moments where it's just,
Yeah.
what do you like? You just kind of have to step out and say, well, if it's my time, it's my time. But
Mhm.
it's kind of an unnerving situation too, because you're like, I'm about to die, you know?
Yeah. 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 So what I found in those situations is that my fight instinct is quite strong, which I think contributed to the after effects. So for people that are on the show, I mean, it's television, but it's real life for us. So there are so many interesting things that happen to you that stick with you, probably for the rest of your life, if not for a very long time after. And I always say they should do a show just coming back and going over what those things are and helping people to understand the reality of this reality show. Because it's just really fascinating. And going out there, I knew that I was going to starve. Everybody starves that is on the show. I don't care if you win or not, you are starving to death when you either win or they pull you. And in a lot of cases, the winner has been very close to being pulled. Like they were next on the list to be pulled because they were starving, but they just happened to make it to be the last one. So you know that going in, you just are ready to starve. So I knew going in that, there was going to be danger. Mountain lions, wolves, grizzly bears, whatever. I also knew that I was going to starve. I knew what the effects of what's called starved brain syndrome would be on me. So I watched myself go through those. I knew coming back that there would be consequences health-wise from what I was doing to myself. And I think Nate from my season actually tapped out for that reason. He felt it taking a toll on his body, and he said, I'm just not doing this. Now, he had won Alone the Beast prior, so he already had experienced some of this. So he tapped out. He just said, I'd really rather not put my body through this time. And I think that knowing what all was going to happen and then experiencing it was very fascinating. And people laugh at me when I say it was fascinating to starve, but it's interesting because now I talk a lot about health. I talk a lot about vitamins and minerals and taking care of yourself. And I watch this society around me, not everybody, of course, but like there's a high percentage of people that are showing signs of exactly what I experienced. Starved brain syndrome isn't just because you go on alone and you starve yourself for 37 days. It is prevalent in our society just because we eat so terribly. Our brain is deprived of nutrients and vitamins and it's hormone imbalance, and then we can't figure out what it is, and we blame it on everything else, or we go excessive on this topic and not just a nice balance across the board. So I like to say that I'm a little bit of an expert just because I starved myself and then I got to, come back from that. And over the last 4 years, there has been that up and down. My appendix burst when I came back. I have osteoarthritis in my back.
Ooh.
So everything that is underlying that you would experience later in life, when you drive yourself to that weakened state, it'd just be like, having a real medical issue in your life that you get very, very sick, and then all of these other things arise because of it. That's what happens to us out there. So every time I would think, okay, I'm getting a little bit better, something like my appendix bursting would happen, and which can be attributed to starvation. It's not super common for a 45-year-old woman to have her appendix rupture, so for just no
Yeah.
reason. So, and it was shortly after I got back. So watching my body go through all of that was so fascinating. Really paying attention to it, being present in all of it was very important when you're out there and you're going through that, because you're super depressed and you have to know what is causing that. And you have to know how to stay present in those moments and deal with that. People tap out because they are in starved brain syndrome and they are severely depressed. So I do hear a lot of comments, why would they go if they were going to miss their family? That is not how you start, but that is how you end. So, and then you have to deal with that when you come back. So just an interesting journey being on that show and getting to, live out all of that stuff. But while I was in starved brain syndrome, like a mode from early on, it starts kicking in within the first few days of starving. I also was being hunted by grizzly bears. I was being approached by grizzly bears. I had a grizzly bear coming from here. I had a grizzly bear, like my head is on a swivel the entire time. So if I'm cutting down a tree, I'm thinking, I'm placing stuff strategically, like there is my arrow, because we can only take primitive items, right? So we don't have any, guns or anything like that. So, and the one item that I wish I would have taken that I didn't was my larger knife. Instead of relying on the tiny knife on my multi-tool, I would have taken my big knife and left my hatchet at home. Because all I needed was my saw. But that big knife would have made me feel so much better. And I use that to split wood. I use that to do everything. But I would strategically lay stuff out. And then I would think, if a bear comes from there, there's that item. If a bear comes from there, and I'm like cutting wood and I'm just constantly looking, is there going to be a mountain lion? And, there are weird instances where you feel like something's watching you, somebody's watching you, or you smell. You know what a bear smells like. Like you can smell a bear. So
like that wet dog smell.
Yeah, it's like a musty, yeah. So I could smell something was in the area, because also your senses get heightened. So you're just planning to defend yourself. You're planning to fight something all the time. Even at nighttime when you're trying to sleep, you're just waking up constantly because you have to be alert enough to protect yourself. So you do that while you're in this starved brain state. And then the final instance, which I did not tap out when that bear was hunting me, and he was right behind me on the beach. So if you watch it, a lot of people don't notice because he's standing by the tree, but then after I say it, they go back and watch it, and he's standing right behind me while I'm talking to the camera. There's a grizzly bear standing behind me. So I scared him out of my camp that morning. I yelled at him when I came around the shelter, and he just kind of huffed at me and then turned and started to go up the hill. So I knew he wasn't gone though. So it took me a second to I wasn't expecting to walk around my shelter and there's a grizzly bear just watching me talk to the camera. So it took me a second to collect myself. And then I was like, all right, coming from the world of hunting and trapping, I need to figure out where he came from, why he was here. I had seen his tracks 2 days before up by my kitchen in the snow. So I knew that I needed to figure out, this grizzly bear just seemed different than the other grizzly bears. I needed to figure out what he was doing there. And I can't even remember now, just because you're in such a fragile state and then you come back, you do forget a lot of the details, but I can't remember what day that was, maybe 30, 31, something like that. And I knew that he was probably going to stick around because he had been there. So I took my camera and I'm tracking this bear. And someone had commented, "You deserve that bear to hunt you. You were stalking him." And I'm like, how do you not have any idea that if I don't know where this bear came from and I don't know what he's doing, I'm going to die? That, whatever. So I was tracking him to figure out where he came from and why he was there. He didn't take the normal path that the other bears took. It just seemed off to me. And especially the way he was just watching me, and I have no idea how long he was just watching me. So anyways, I scared him up over, and I'm guessing it might have been 2.5, 3 hours. You don't have a watch to keep track of how anything is, timed out there. But from the time that I took to settle down after I yelled at him to tracking him, I went out on the beach and I had scared him off to the left into the woods. And he went all the way around me. That whole time he was watching me. And he came out to my right up the other side of the beach and was just standing behind me. So when I'm talking to the camera, I'm saying to the camera, he didn't come from there. And I think I was saying he didn't come from there. And I turn around, he's just standing there. So, oh my goodness. So I yelled at him. I think I had this big parka on, so I couldn't get to my bear spray that was on my hip under my jacket. I could have, but I couldn't get the camera pack off my back to get any kind of mobility. I'm trying to turn the camera so that people can see this bear. So there's like so much going on in your head trying to film for people and stay alive. So I did get my air horn out of my bag. I blew that at him, and it did startle him. Like he started to go, but then he came up on his hind feet and he came back towards me. So I'm just trying to get in the woods, you know, low pine limbs. You're trying to get your camera, your giant bag back into the woods, keep an eye on this bear. Just so much happening at the same time. So I just backed up. I just want to get my back to like a tree. So, which isn't going to stop him, but it's going to give me something to move around a little bit, is what I was thinking. And you know, they're swiping and, you know, if they're attacking, like,
Yeah.
but my plan is I'm going to fight this bear. So when I got back and the show aired, one of my customers, I had a sporting goods store locally here at the time. One of my customers said, "Don't be ridiculous. You're not going to fight a bear." And I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah. I may not have lived, but I was for sure going to fight that bear. Like I'm not going to lay down and die, you know?" So,
Yeah.
yeah, your mindset is every second of every day to stay alive. You're not just going to die out there. So doing all of that, and I'm going to leave you hanging on the grizzly bear for a second, but living through all of that like that in such a fragile mental state causes post-traumatic stress disorder. So, which I didn't even think about, you know, while all this is going on, but that caught me really quick when I got back. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But when the bear, I think I blew the air horn again. I think that's when he like took off and went back around to what I called my swamp. And he didn't leave for a long time after that. And it may not have been as long as I thought it was. It just seemed like a really long time because I'm talking to the camera and I can see through the trees that this bear is not going. He wants to come back to me. And it was just because of that loud noise that he wasn't right away. And he's just trying to decide. So I'm trying to decide. And I took my yellow brick out, which if you watch Alone, you know, is the tap out button. So I'm crying, of course, because this is a traumatic event.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's when I thought, nobody's coming to save you. You are on your own. There's nobody here.
Even if you press the button, it's not happening right away.
Right. So while this is all like happening and I'm saying this is a television show, it's not worth it. They break and they go to commercial break because like that was like the perfect, you know, TV moment for them. Like, is she going to tap? But in my head, in just that couple of minutes, maybe not even that long, I thought, you know, you can't go here. You can't go here mentally because you have to stay alive. So you have to calm down, put this thing away. Nobody's coming. By the time they get here, it's going to be a couple of hours. You're either going to be dead or that grizzly bear is going to be gone. And if he comes at you, you need to be ready. So I just put it away and I just stayed. Like that was just my decision. I was fine. I was going to handle this and whatever happened, happened. And so he eventually just wandered off. I didn't see him go. I just didn't see him anymore. So that was a sleepless night.
Oh, I'll bet.
Yeah. But I did see footprints for a few days around the area. I think he just kind of hung out. We were getting pretty late into the season at that point. And of course we had snow and, you know, it was a salmon migration from the Fraser River into Chilco, but there was a landslide that blocked the salmon migration. So the bear, they were hungry. They came there for salmon and there were some that made it through because the salmon are sacred to that tribe that lives there. So we weren't allowed to eat them. So they would wash up on the beach. And I stepped over one. I wasn't allowed to eat it because they're protected or, you know, sacred to them. So we're not allowed to touch them.
How hard is that?
It's very
Like,
hard. Yeah.
I can only imagine. It's like, so I wrestled for a long time. And so starvation was something that I was very familiar
Yeah.
with. And all of my family would be eating dessert or eating like a big spaghetti dinner. And here I am just like, yeah, I can't
Yeah.
eat that. I'm having my half a baked potato with salsa or,
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
and I can only imagine that that has got to be so tough being
Yeah.
in a starvation situation like that. And it's like they're dangling food in front of you and you just can't touch it.
Yeah, but that's all over out there. There's lots of food out, not lots, but there's food that would sustain you out there. So the comment that I had made about my title was the Trap Queen, and they took me or were interested in me because I'm a trapper. So many things happened out there that related to that. Had I been able to use my skill more, I think I would have been more successful. But when we got there, I wasn't allowed to trap. So I
Mm.
wasn't allowed to, and I have like a couple of YouTube videos. I used to love to go out and just make crazy traps, like homemade trigger systems. Like I made this big, like I don't remember, it was probably like a 3 foot by 5 foot with fire hardened spikes. I raised it up in the air like a grid, raised it up in the air with a log on it, and then made a homemade trigger system with a tripwire, and I set it off. Like I used to love to do things like that, but you can't use that stuff there. I wasn't allowed to trap at all there. I was only allowed to snare rabbits. So we weren't allowed to eat squirrels. We weren't allowed to eat rats. We weren't allowed to eat mice. So it's survival within the parameters that they set. And they are some
Ugh.
smaller parameters. So I had a squirrel run over me in my sleeping bag. So many squirrels. Not allowed to eat them. And they're super easy to snare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's I can only imagine. It's
Yeah.
like that's got to be so freaking tough.
It is tough. Yeah. Yeah. Because,
Yeah.
and people were like, well, why wouldn't you just do it? Nobody's going to see you do it. Well, there were a few cameras around, and I just wanted to follow the rules. Like, I just am a rule follower. That's just how I am. I did not want to be the girl that got disqualified for the first time ever. You know what I mean? And I don't know that that would happen, but, or, that they would catch you. I mean, it would be difficult for them to catch you eating something you're not supposed to. But, also just, you're there for a reason. You're there to do this specific challenge. So if people do that, then they do that. I did
You're
not.
the only person on Alone that has gained weight.
Yeah. Why are you thriving out here?
But
Yeah.
that's
So
like
it
that's like cutting off one of your arms though.
was.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to bring this lady on that is a phenomenal trapper. Oh, by the way, you can't use that skill. It's like,
Yeah.
why would you even bring somebody like that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think that, that's the entertainment side. So, they did focus a lot on, they would say things to me like, what do you think people are going to think of a girl like you being on the show? And I'm like, what does that mean, a girl like me? Well, a lot of the people that are on the show have so much in common because they come from that survival world. And by survival world, I mean they all stay at the same survival schools. So, like, I can't even remember how it went, but it was like Michelle stayed in the same shelter that Matt stayed in when he was at this survival school. They're all from the same world. So there are just a few of us that are outside that world. Like, I don't know that Clay Hayes went to a survival school, but like he might be a little bit different, more of an avid, hunter and outdoorsman.
Yeah,
Roland
Clay's a
Welker,
pretty phenomenal.
he is.
He's a
Yeah.
pretty phenomenal guy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I knew who he was before I went there, and then I get there and I have to compete against Clay Hayes, like, but
Yeah.
yeah, he's a good outdoorsman. But like Roland Welker, who got the muskox, he's a large game guide and hunter. Not like some of the other participants, but they did focus on that a lot, asking me that question, and I couldn't figure out why. Well, then I figured it out, after the fact, because what they did was they tried to pitch me as the blonde trophy hunter, which I am not at all. So a lot of people did not like me for that reason that watched the show. Like I would get comments from women and they would say, I hope you're happy teaching kids to kill animals sitting in your trophy room. I don't have a bunch of trophies hanging in my house. I wish I did. I just don't. I normally, when I go on a hunt, it's for a conservation reason. So I don't always bring my mounts home. I mean, I do have an elk, a couple of coyotes. One coyote is because he was in my chicken coop eating my chickens and I shot him. So, most of it's for conservation purposes. So they did pitch me as the blonde trophy hunter. And that's what they do, is they kind of shape everybody the way they think the audience is going to either like them or not like them. So
Yeah,
it was
that's
it
pretty
was an
crazy.
interesting adventure. And then, like I said, the things that you deal with when you come back, like the PTSD diagnosis was not something I ever wanted. I came back, I own a gun shop. I, I just like to think of myself as a very strong person. So when they said that this is what it was that I was struggling with, I was like, nope, not me. That is not what I have. But I did talk to Nate from the show, and he said, you need to do something about this, because one of my customers had a cup of coffee for me standing at my truck door. I was talking to my daughter on the phone, and I turned and he was standing there, and it startled me because somebody is now like right here. And I started laughing and crying, and every emotion I could feel tried to come out of my face at the same time, and I just couldn't calm down. It's like this heightened state of like, I can't get it back under control. And things like that, like a laundry basket out of place sitting on the table in the basement, like I about dropped to the floor, just things like that. And I didn't want to leave the house. I just wanted to stay inside. I didn't want to talk to people. And so, my friendships, my relationships are really starting to struggle. And I just needed to own it and deal with it. But it's not like the flu. It doesn't go away. Every once in a while it'll come back and let me know that, I have these, just traumatic things that have happened to me in my life. And so now, like I was mentioning to you earlier, that I'm writing a book. So my book is not just about Alone, because I think people can watch that. And there's some cool behind the scenes stuff to know about it. But my book for me needed to be about the traumatic events that have happened my entire life. And that was the breaking point that just made it all surface, and that I was able to own it and get better. So I think that, there are so many reasons that Alone has been a great adventure for me. It allowed me to come home, and I closed my sporting goods stores, and I have a very successful nonprofit now. I think so far this year, we're only in August, so we've put over 600 people through our programs. But it also allowed me to acknowledge what had happened to me and get better, which will be a lifelong, journey. But
well, that's a good segue. So what is your nonprofit? Like, what is it that you do with it, and what's it called? What do you have?
So this is my quest. Started as, and I have to be very careful here because I do have a little bitterness towards the side of the hunting industry that is big money. So that's a whole other podcast. But when I was chasing a North American Super Slam, I thought, what better way to have a model? Like, my trademark attorney said to me one time, you're like a wildfire, I need to rein you in. And I was like, all right, so this is a good model. And if I do this with my bow, Anna Vorsak is the only woman to have ever accomplished a Super Slam with her bow. And I would love to follow her up. She's amazing. So I really delved into that whole side of things. I spent a lot of time at Slam Quest. I would go out every year, going to all the Safari Club, get-togethers, and just really speaking for Pope and Young, because they asked me to fly out to Nebraska and do that, to hang out with them and learn more about them, and maybe do some youth education stuff. So I was really spending a lot of time in that world, and my Super Slam, my quest for the Super Slam was This Is My Quest. So I had spent about 6 years doing that, and I thought, when I unveil my nonprofit, and I'm just going to call it, this is my quest. I might as well just stick to it because this is my quest, right? Um, all of these organizations are going to believe in what I do, and they're going to be by my side and help me, which is not true at all.
Yeah.
Not a one of them now. And every single one of them was like, well, I don't know, maybe you could like go to the women's side of our nonprofit. And I'm like, all right, whatever. So I have very strong feelings about their actual motives, um, and who they are and why they do it. But I continued on my quest because um, I think for me, knowing how healing the outdoors was for me and how safe it was for me, I hear so many other women and children say, I'm afraid to go out there. So what I do is I just try to make sure at my nonprofit that I'm just that person that goes with them to help them find their comfort or to help build them up. So we have a big archery program, and archery is that sport that every time you pick up a bow, you prove to yourself what you can do. And these kids are amazing, and I see so much growth in them. From one little boy who just is so dear to me. He's been with us for like 4 years. He came to us afraid of everything, not having any outdoor exposure, had a really hard beginning to his life, a mother who was an addict, nobody that cared for him. His dad took him and was trying to give him a better life. He brought him to me, and now he is one of my top shooters. Just an amazing, amazing kid. He loves to be in the outdoors. He's such a leader. He takes on these amazing roles. Our child abuse awareness event, he was like the lead on that. And he's only 11. And he just
Wow.
is this amazing kid. So these are the kids that I get to work with. So I took a loan, and "You are never alone" became our slogan. And I just stay with these kids, and I stay with these families, and I help them find that comfort in the outdoors because there are so many good things that come from that, right? So they learn about wildlife, they learn about ethical hunting, they learn about the need for conservation, they learn strength and comfort out there. They also, I'm hoping for like the girls that work with me, that they find a comfort out there and they'll enter those outdoor jobs like conservation jobs or forestry jobs, helping to keep them local to our area, but just inspire others too. I think the ripple effect from it is really great. Then I also have a veterans program, which is also very dear to me. That's Veterans in the Wild. There are tons of veteran hunting organizations, and they're all amazing. So that is not what we do. What we do is we offer an opportunity for veterans to join us in the outdoors, and it may not be hunting that they need. It may not be fishing that they need. It may just be doing conservation work. We do a lot of tree planting. We do honeybees. So they stay with our programs. It's not like a one and done, okay, we took you out, hope you're feeling better, and then we move on. We stay with them. And then the elder veteran program, which is those are all my friends that I get to work with. So I leave like all the other veteran stuff to, my younger veterans, that the guys and the ladies that like to take other veterans out. But the elder veteran program is like that. Those guys are my buddies. So I have a veteran now who has terminal cancer. He's a Vietnam era veteran. So he doesn't have a lot longer. So I just make sure that he gets out there with me. He walked around on my trap line with me last year. He had a little trouble, kind of hobbling around, going up the hills, but he did it. And on days that he doesn't feel like it, I still drag him out and, make sure he gets out there. And we had one who passed in November. He was Korean War. His final days, one of the guys picked him up and put him in the car. We drove him to where he used to take his dog hunting, and he took his dog and he just sat in the sun and he watched her run around. Like, getting them into the outdoors, even those guys, like, they still need to get out there. So those guys, it breaks my heart. It's a very hard project to work on, and I do get very close to them. Those guys are really special. So it's
That's outstanding.
a big nonprofit, a lot of moving parts and a lot of volunteers. But I don't know. I just think the impact of it is so huge that this is where I will spend. This is like my final. This is where I'll spend the rest of my life on this project.
That
So
is that is really, really awesome. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that because, veteran stuff, because I'm a vet and, I dealt with a lot of, trouble and had a lot of friends that committed suicide and, just different things like that. That sort of thing is near and dear to me. And then, with what you're doing with kids and everything is that's very admirable. I really like that. That's great.
Thanks.
Um,
It's pretty rewarding. I can't say it's a selfless job that I have. I mean, I get paid in hugs and, just amazing stories and meeting amazing people. So it's very
yeah,
cool.
real quick on kind of a side point.
Yeah.
Um, Dealing with bees actually really helped me a lot.
Yeah. It's a
Um,
therapy.
yeah, I used to take
Yeah.
bees out of people's houses,
Yep.
and um, when I lived on the East Coast, I did that. And at one point, I had like 17 hives and stuff that I had rehomed, and um, it's one of those things where you've got all of all of this noise going on, all of this anxiety and stuff, and you have to make yourself calm down. Even if you get stung, through your suit somehow, you have to calm yourself down. And
Yep.
it's very reminiscent of PTSD.
Hmm.
And like when I have my episodes and stuff like that, I will, for me, my big thing is like I get angry. Like if I get scared, I get angry. Or if I get overstimulated, I'll get angry, and that's the first
Your
thing. And
fight
maybe,
response. Yeah.
yeah, my fight response is pretty high.
Hmm.
And a lot of veterans are that way.
Hmm.
And so when I was in the situations where there was a bunch of bees around me, especially taking them out of like in confined spaces in people's houses, and they're just going everywhere, and all you're hearing is bzzz, you're feeling the wind from the wings, and all these different things. I really had to learn that, okay, it's fine. I just got to calm down. They're just doing their thing. Just concentrate on what you're doing. And I have to concentrate on, okay, find the queen. And it's like baby steps.
Hmm.
Okay, well, I got to remove this little section of comb. I've got to remove this little section of comb. And, the whole time I'm having to turn it over. Okay, is the queen in this section of brood? And I really had to like learn how to take my mind off of the noise. And so that is a very, very effective therapy, I think.
It is. It actually is a therapy that is recognized, and it was, I think, first studied during Vietnam era. So it is something that is used. It's the frequency of the bees also that you probably didn't even know was
I didn't.
factoring in. Yeah. Yeah, so I do a lot of, we make sure that we do a lot of like evidence-based trauma care because I work with a lot of foster kids. We do a lot of community programs, and I work with a lot of, just other trauma victims. So we always make sure that we are providing care that has that evidence base behind it. So for the veterans, that's kind of one of the bonuses for our program. And we actually were given a nice grant from the National Forest Service and National Environmental Education Foundation last year to hold a camp it was called the Wilderness Warriors Camp that we did in May, for veterans to come out and just kind of get to do a little bit of all of that stuff that has a proven therapeutic background to it. So, yeah, bees is one of those tools that we use. So,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
So I believe I read somewhere your motto is coaching, competing, growing, and healing. Did I get
yeah,
that right?
yes.
Um, where did that come from?
Well, it's I don't know. So it's so hard for me to separate each one of my programs and give each one a separate label. And I started to do that early on, but the programs were getting so big and so varied. I just pulled everything back. So I don't really follow. Um, a lot of the early on, slogans or thought processes. Everything has kind of moved into being under one umbrella of care for everyone. So archery is my favorite. I do think that, the competition side of things for youth, and probably for adults too, but for youth especially, helps them grow. It puts them in a situation that is out of their comfort zone. They cannot control it, and the parents cannot control it. They cannot fix it. They cannot change it. They're standing on a line with so many other kids. And I think it was last year, one of my older competition archers, she's standing on the line with, hundreds of kids at a national competition, and she went to hook her release and she dropped it over the line, and she knows you can't reach down and pick up
Oh
something over the
no.
line. And she turned around, she looked at us, and I saw a tear, and I was like, "You're okay." And like I'm just like mouthing to her, "You are okay." And she looks at it and she tries to grab it with her foot. And luckily one of the officials came up and he grabbed it for her, he handed it to her, and she had to stay there and shoot that whole round out. And she did not shoot well, but she shot it and she came off that line, and she was like, "All right, well, that was so embarrassing." But the growth that happens in those moments of competition, I think, is really where my mindset was when I was building the competition side of things. We do competition trap. They compete with shotguns, with archery. That's called Precision Quest, is my shooting sports side of things. So it's kind of where that thought process was with the competition stuff.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, archery is one of those things too that you have to be so present to do it effectively.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, there's so much to pay attention to, and
Yeah.
I really wasn't um, a traditional archer before this year.
Okay.
I've shot trad, but I wouldn't consider myself a traditional archer. And so I got this new trad bow and everything, recurve, and I started shooting it, and I was like, "Holy crap! This thing is not forgiving at all."
Mm-mm.
Where like a compound, okay, you can kind of, maybe you grip it a little bit too hard or something like that on the shot, and you're off by maybe a few inches. If you do that with a trad bow, you're off by feet.
Yeah.
And so that has been such a helpful tool for me to learn. And I'm not, by no means am I saying that I'm good at it, because I would not call myself good at it.
Takes
I'm
time.
okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm okay. Um but when I picked up my compound to get ready, for season, and actually I just came off of an injury. I had surgery on my pec. I removed my pec from my shoulder.
Oh, jeez.
Um, yeah, so I had to have it reattached,
Jeez.
and I was a little bit afraid of shooting.
Yeah.
Um, and so I picked up my compound and shot 4 shots at 50 yards, and it was like a 2-inch group. And I
Mhm.
was like, what just happened? Because there is no way that I should have been able to pick up that compound bow after almost a year
Mhm.
and be able to shoot like that. And I was like, that's a fluke. So then I go and I shoot again, and it's like the same thing. And I'm like, what in the world? The only thing I could have attributed it to was the focus and the use of all the muscles and stuff like that I would have had to have used shooting a recurve.
Yeah.
Uh, there's just it's just a phenomenal tool for getting you out of your head.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's staying present in what you're doing. Like the kids hear me say that to them all the time. I think last year we had about 130 kids that shot with me on the regular. But the competition team stays right around 30 kids that are local, state, and national shooters. So I would be referring to those shooters when I say, the kids. The rest of the kids are all at-risk youth and after-school programs that I do. But the kids on my team, they hear me say all the time, why are you mindlessly shooting? Like, why are you just getting up there, going through the motions? Because they're like, I don't know what's wrong. You do know what's wrong. You're just not thinking about it. You're just doing it. That's what's wrong. Like, I need you to stay present in what you're doing. You've been shooting with me long enough. So, yeah, I do say that to them all the time. Why are you just mindlessly shooting? You have to stay present in every single shot because you are a competition shooter. And that is what you
Mhm.
have to do, So you can't just mindlessly shoot. It's not just going to be that easy. So
And that's a
it,
great message for life too.
yeah, absolutely. Stay present in it. And I help the kids through that all the time. I have a lot of kids that have anxiety or, come from not great home lives. And so, we go through a lot of anxiety, like to calm down. Um, like emotional response training, I guess is what it's called. Um, if you're present, just like on Alone, if you're present in that moment, it's so much easier to deal with everything. So yeah, I just think that competition for these kids, and it doesn't matter what their background is or where they come from, it is such a great tool. And I wanted to make sure that I was teaching them all of those and giving them all of those tools that they would have in their little toolbox for the rest of their life to deal with every emotional situation. Because I think as a coach, that is part of your job. You are there for a reason, and it is not just for your team to win. It is to help these kids deal and to cope and to teach them how to use those tools that they have. So that's always a really big thing for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
So, how has your worldview kind of changed after Alone and getting into your nonprofit and stuff like that?
Um, I don't know. I think that what I decided when I decided, and I swore that I would not start something that I would not finish, and I think I will finish that Super Slam someday, because I do love, hunting in different cultures and different areas. Um, I think I will finish it someday. It's not that I'm quitting on it, but it stopped being my focus because what I knew is that I wasn't going to get the support that I needed to teach on that large scale and not have the impact that I needed. Um, what I wanted to do was just not try to be all over the place anymore and to really focus at home and have that impact that I need here because I do look at the world like it's too big. It's too wasteful. It's too hard to watch it, um, and to watch people not care. So I get to stay in this kind of sheltered little world now, where people do care, and I get to teach them why they should care. So I think it made me not see everything in such a positive light. I used to just always think, oh my gosh, the whole world is amazing and people are amazing. And I think that it did change that for me. I see it differently now.
Hmm.
People are still amazing. There are so many amazing people. But I mean, when you go on social media and you see people just not caring at all about their environment or wastefulness or, consumerism, I mean, TikTok is absolutely the worst platform for teaching people to be wasteful. I mean, they're like, I got this sweater, buy one in every color. I've got 50 pairs of sneakers. Like, it is just like, buy it, buy it, buy it, buy it. And it is just watching a world like that for a girl that had nothing. And my life is simple now. Like, I don't need a lot. I don't want a lot. It changed that view for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. You go out with 10 items and that is your world.
Mhm.
And I mean, if you were to live in today's modern world, and you only were able to choose 10 items, I think probably 99% of the people out there would be like, no, I have to have my scarf or,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah, all your accessories, everything,
Yeah.
just because they want it. It's not about necessity. The one thing that was funny to me when I came home, so I was in recovery for 11 days, and then they finally sent me home because you can get refeeding syndrome, and you can die from eating again after not eating.
Yeah, Donnie
So,
Dust talked about that on a podcast that I did with him.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he would know very well. So they just slowly feed you. So I think I came out about 111, 112 pounds, somewhere in there. Went in about 150. So I was severely dehydrated, which is something that I've struggled with ever since. I cannot get hydrated. I have to have electrolytes every single day, or I am just so visibly dehydrated. It's just so bad. It's not something I've ever been able to correct, and I don't know what it would have switched to make it that way, but dehydration is something that I've struggled with. So getting me rehydrated and feeding me that was the main part of the process, and getting me up and moving again, because your legs are so tight, from being a hunter and living in Montana and hiking, and when you're out there and your muscles are depleted of energy and it's burning when you walk, like at such an extreme level, if I had to pick something up off the floor, I had to pull myself back up with a chair. I lost so much muscle. So, um, anyways, I'm in recovery for 11 days. Jim Baird from season 5 came back to take care of me. So he is hilarious. He has a funny video on his YouTube channel of him and I cooking up a rabbit that I brought back when they took me back out to bury my bear trap. There was a rabbit in one of my snares, so I brought it back because I was like, I'm not wasting it. They're like, you're not bringing that with you. And I said, well, then I'm not going with you. I'm not getting back on the boat. This rabbit's coming with me. So I took this giant rabbit back, and me and Jim Baird cooked it up. It's on his channel. But we had so much fun. So, like him helping me, like he would bring me little bits of food like boiled egg or avocado. And then I couldn't eat it all. So I would just like store it. And finally I had like this whole countertop of food, and he was like, I'm taking your food. I promise I'll bring you more. I was like hoarding food because I just wasn't thinking, like it's okay. There's going to be more food. Your brain changes. It reverts to a primitive state very, very quickly. You don't remember what your cell phone looks like. You don't remember people's faces. It just goes to what you need. So, anyways, then I come home. So, flying home was also like a lot of people, a lot of noise. It was a little difficult to get home. So, I got home and I woke up in the morning at like 2 o'clock because you can't sleep, you're back in civilization. I walked out to the kitchen and I opened the refrigerator and I'm like, this is so weird. Like, it was just like a thing that will stick with me forever. Like, there's food. It's so crazy. I don't know why. It's just like the one thing I remember when I came back that was just so funny to me. Like, there's food. Shut the door, open it. There's still food. It's just cool. It was a neat feeling, but trying to get your brain to like come back to where it should be. They don't let you have a cell phone or anything when you come back out. You have to wait until you're ready to go home. They won't, it's too much stimuli for your brain. So
Oh,
you
I
have
could
to
only
wait.
imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
So
pretty
how
crazy.
long did it take you before you were able to actually sleep?
Oh, I still don't sleep. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No, I am up at all weird hours. I just never have gotten back to a normal sleep pattern. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. After I came back from Afghanistan, um, it was I did there for like a month. They said that they did a sleep test on me. They said that I was getting max 3 hours of sleep a night for an entire month.
Yeah.
And then they tried to put me on Ambien, and that didn't work out so well. Yeah, Ambien. I was peeing in the oven. Like
Yeah, I've heard that that can be pretty, yeah, change
it
all
was.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it was. it did not work well for me. So it took a really long time before I was able to actually sleep
Mhm.
somewhat consistently. And even still, to this day, like I'll wake up 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, midnight. It's like, um, it's still pretty tough. So I was wondering about that as well, because
Yeah.
you're in a situation, especially when your head is on a swivel all the time. Every little noise, every little thing wakes you up.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That was one of the things when I came back and my doctor, working with my doctor. So the show had no idea how impactful, they weren't anticipating PTSD from grizzly bears or, so they only paid for a couple sessions of, like a therapist that could help me with some tools to deal with it. And then you're just kind of on your own. They're not like, oh, let's make sure that you recover from this. They're just like, oh, we should legally do this. So, anyways, then they pay for just, I think, a follow up doctor visit and then one that clears you. So they don't really do a whole lot when you come back. But what I wanted to do, because the muscle loss was so severe, and for me, I have to be very strong because of everything that I do. I
Hmm.
hunt all over the world and I, insist on doing everything myself. One of my good friends, he jokes that he knew to not touch my gator because there's a funny video of me like hossing my gator up over the boat and people are like, why didn't he help you? And he always jokes, I know not to touch her animal. So like I just have to be very strong. So when I came back, it was important for me. But here I'm like 44, 45, trying to rebuild muscle at that age after such a severe loss. Like the chiropractor said, like does me no good to adjust you. Your small muscle degradation is just everything just kind of falls back out of place. Like, so we have to build up muscle first. So my doctor wanted to put me on steroids. And I said, I'm a little concerned that steroids might cause a little anxiety. You just diagnosed me with PTSD. And she said, that's okay. We'll just give you some anxiety medicine. I'm like, how about we just don't? Like, how about
Yeah.
I will do this the hard, old fashioned way and just slowly rebuild this muscle. And I had to start with bands at physical therapy because I was starting to lift weights, but I couldn't do that because the small muscle wasn't strong enough to hold the large muscle. So it
Hmm.
had taken me 4 solid years of, then my appendix burst, and then I had this illness, and then fixing my back issue because I have osteoarthritis. But the stronger I get, the better all of that feels, and it just has been a long road. And I try to go to the gym, but I just still really struggle with that anxiety of like people being too close or I try. And then my friend who has a gym down here, he's like, it's fine. Everybody's there for the same reason. Yeah, but I'm not anxious for the same reason that somebody else might be anxious in the gym. I'm just like, you're just a little too close. Like standing behind me and it's freaking me out. And I'll just pack up my stuff and leave. So I had to build like in the barn in an old horse stall. I have a little gym that I built, and that's just where I go. And every day I have to do that. It also helps, like, I think, with the anxiety a little bit. I don't know if you find that, but
Hmm.
um, if I don't, it's definitely a harder day for me. So, rebuilding all of the muscle, feeling strong. And that's another great thing that I get to share with the young ladies that do my programs is it's not about being skinny. It's about being healthy. It's about being strong and capable and the self-confidence that you need. So that's kind of a fun little side effect of, them watching me rebuild and stay healthy as I get to influence them in that way. But yeah, it has been a long road of building back muscle because your body wants to store fat. Your body does not want to let it go. Once you start eating again, I said to my doctor, I'm in the gym like 4 days a week. I am eating so healthy and I am still storing fat. How long does this go on? And she said, we don't know. We don't starve people. Yeah, I've had to learn, I've had to do so much research on my own. That's why I just did like a TikTok recently because I know that people are going to get sick of me talking about, vitamins and nutrients, and your brain cannot produce the hormones that it needs if we're not getting the proper nutrition. And I want to talk about it, and I hope people find value in it. Um, it's not a quick fix. it's just hard work and it takes time and focus, but it's so important. It just has taken me a long time to really educate myself, learn it all, and I'm ready to pass it all on to other people now.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, we've been on here for like an hour and 20 minutes.
I
And
know.
so let's go ahead and close this thing out. Do you have any final thoughts?
I don't think so. I think that we covered a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of
we really did.
information.
Well, where can people find you and your information? And do you have a um, anything like a social or anything like that for This Is My Quest?
I do. So Facebook, there's a This Is My Quest page, and we always love it when people follow what the kids are doing and what we're doing. We also have a This Is My Quest. I think it's Tim Q, Veterans in the Wild would be the veterans page. And then Real Rosanna is my like Instagram handle, because there were a few Rosannas over there. So Real Rosanna is where you can usually find me. I think that's my TikTok also, but my email address is info at what no, I can't remember what it was. RosannaMoore.com.
More,
Or no, wait.
more Rosanna, more Rosanna, because I
There you
typed
go.
it in a few times
Yeah,
this morning.
you forgot my A. Yeah. It's info at morerosanna.com. There you go. I have a few email addresses. It's hard to keep everything straight, but yeah, that would be the one. And I
Perfect. Well,
appreciate your time.
yeah, thank you very much. I
Mhm.
really appreciate this. This has been fun.
Yeah, it has.